Hi, you're listening to Book Chat with author Vivian E. Moore.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode. We really appreciate you joining us. This podcast really shows us how we can all learn, live, and thrive off of each other. By sharing our knowledge through our conversations, we will impart some knowledge whilst learning ourselves how to progress even further. Here is your host.
Hello and welcome to Book Chat. I am your host, author Vivian E. Moore. Today we have another special guest. We have with us today Kim Childress, author, editor, reviewer, consultant, speaker. She has all the bases covered in the writing world. So Kim, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Well, I'm excited to have you on the show. I'm glad that you're here with us today. And if you will, just tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do.
Okay, so I am an author and editor and a mom of 4. And I have worked in all different genres of publishing.
Wow.
Before finally settling on children's books. So I didn't plan that when I started out, but I tried different things before settling on this, and majored in English from Ohio Wesleyan with a minor in journalism and political science.
Wow.
And so and then from there I tried magazine work, and I worked for a newspaper, the Greenwood Gazette, for a little while, where I was a reporter and also in advertising sales.
Wow,
so
impressive.
I thought I would try to be, and I wanted to be a advertising salesperson for Condé Nast magazine and travel around the world. That was my plan. But then I tried advertising sales, and I was like, no, this doesn't work for me. And so, but it was really interesting. I ended up in children's publishing because I, at the time, was in between. I had been working for the newspaper and doing advertising sales, and I had graduated college and was still living with my college roommate who worked at a bookstore at the time, and took me to a conference where I heard author Patricia McLachlan speak. And it was at that point where I remembered reading as a child and how much I read, and it was part of my life growing up and basically saved my life. And so I had the epiphany that I wanted to write for children, and that was it. Started from there, and from there I went and got a job at Kids Inc. Children's Bookstore to learn the market.
That was good.
Then I started, and from there got the job for Girls Life magazine, where I still review books, and that's kind of how I've ended up where I am right now.
Wow, that is impressive. And so this has spanned over 30 years, and finally you settled, with the children's books, and I just think that's wonderful. I think that children's books, anything in that genre, whether it's middle grade or YA, things of that nature, whether it's for school or, just for, your personal pleasure. I think that it is so important to get children interested in writing. And I also read where you feel as though the importance also is making sure that children have quality books to read. So I think that editing is a great part of that, making sure that, everything is in order for them. I love that. I really do. I love that. And to to really just go from like point A to point B. You've done everything.
Well, it is so important to me, and it was because I think that even, when I first started out, there was no internet.
Mm-hmm.
And so what kids go through today is so different than what we had, and yet there's still so many similar common experiences,
mm-hmm.
and being a kid is hard. And,
yeah, it is.
And I think that's one of the things in children's publishing. There's a camaraderie between publishers in that everybody in that field, they know that we're working to alter the lives of children.
Yes.
And I think that is a real big difference from children's publishing versus adult publishing.
Right.
So
I agree with you.
Yeah.
It
is.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry to keep
I was
cutting
just
you
going
off.
to say it's very important, children's publishing and more. And one other thing about children's books I like to say is that, you enjoy them as a kid, and then
mm-hmm.
again as a parent, and then
yeah.
as a grandparent.
You
and
do.
So, they keep on going.
It does. It's like the gift that continues to give. And, as a child growing up, books were my best friend. And I mean, they still are to this day. I doubt that reading will ever get out of my system. And a lot of the books that I enjoyed reading as a child, and as you said, you share those books with your kids. I share them with my kids, and hopefully I'll get the opportunity to share them with my grandkids. All the things that I love. So I mean, that is a very important part of growing up and childhood. And also, I love the fact that you view it as a ministry. I think that's just wonderful.
Thank you. I really do. And it's not always been that way, but I just, God put me on this path, and
mm-hmm.
I just kind of went with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so opportunities have happened, and it's just been really a blessing, such a blessing.
It is. I mean, it really is. That you're able to do something that you love, but also to do something worthwhile, because you know that you're changing and forming young minds by the work that you do. So, I think that is very commendable. I really do.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So go ahead.
I know, I'm sorry. I forgot to mention that I did work as a middle grade editor at Zondervan
mm-hmm.
for several years.
Uh-huh.
Before I loved it, still will go back, but having 4 children, it was really not very conducive at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I may go back once I'm an empty nester, but it was a great experience. And so working on books for Zondervan and
mm-hmm.
the Christian publishing market, so I learned a lot doing that also.
Well, that's good, because you have to pick up those little tidbits of knowledge and wisdom along the way. So because it helps you in the end, when you finally reach that journey. So,
right.
But that's how God plans it. He plans for you because he has plans for your life. So he's guiding you along the way. But, as you're on that journey, you're learning as you go, because he knows what you'll need, once you get there. He never sends you on a mission without preparing you for it first. So that much I do know.
I believe it to be true. Yes. I really do.
Yes, it is. It really is. Too, you said that, as writers, we are a team. And
yes.
I couldn't agree with you more, because I'm passionate about what I do. And I know that you are too, because I can hear it, in everything that you say.
I get excited. I'm like, I'm in children's publishing. I can get excited.
Yeah. Because, I've read so many YA. Now, I haven't read a lot of middle grade books, but I do read quite a bit of YA. And I know that that's not your genre. But
I do read in there too, yeah.
And
so it's a mix of middle grade and YA also.
I love it. It is so many great books out there. And
I agree.
And the fun part about it is I get to share them, with because I have one teenage grandson, so I get to share those books that I love with him, because I mostly read romance books and things of that nature because I'm a romance author. But I do enjoy reading the YA and and the fantasy and all of that stuff, and sharing those books with my grandson, because he likes those books too. So I'm like, okay, so now I'm sort of on his level because I can share my experience with what I'm reading with him, through all of these books, the YA books and things like that. And
that's so wonderful.
Yeah.
When the kids get excited and you're able to talk about the books together
Oh,
with
yeah.
them, and
Yeah.
they get excited and show you new things.
Yes.
It's so satisfying.
Or when they bring a book into the house and I'm like, oh, I read that book, and then we have the discussion. So I like that. When I had spoken with you earlier in the week, and because I sort of want to talk about, your work as an editor and a reviewer. And then we'll come back to the author part, but I want to talk about that. So, if you will, just give us some of the most. We're talking about writing and speaking to a lot of potential writers, new writers. I call them newbies that are breaking onto the scene, think they know everything about writing. But they don't, because it's a learning experience as you go along.
Yes.
So can
continuous.
It is. So can you just point out some of the most common errors that you see when you review these manuscripts?
Sure. I think that for when starting out and getting established, one of the best things that you can do is go to conferences, because you have an instant in with any of the editors or agents that are there, and you also learn about the craft of writing, and so for every writer, and you have to be a reader, and so whatever genre you're working in, I can't stress enough that to be reading in that genre so that you can see what's out there. And for all writers, whether or not you want to be published traditionally, I'm going to talk about traditional publishing.
Okay.
So it's if you want to have an agent or not, you have to do the same amount of homework to get an agent as you do to become as you would to submit yourself. And so doing your homework and learning what's out there is a big deal, which is one of the reasons why when I started out, I got a job at the children's bookstore, so I could start to learn the market, and you can see what publishers are publishing what kind of books. And so, and when submitting and when first starting out, one of the ways I started out was in magazine publishing, and I would just write articles that interested me. And then I would go to the library, because there wasn't any internet then, and I would look at magazines that were similar to the article I wrote and just start submitting. And so in doing that, I set goals and to submit like once a week to get those out. And then and after a while, then you start to create a network, and that's one of the ways first starting out. I think that for every writer, no matter how seasoned you are, there's always these hiccups. Like, some words will trip up people. Like, I always mess up the word separate for some reason. I always misspell that word. And so I think that it's so much easier to see mistakes in other people's work than in your own. And especially when you are reading it for the 10th time.
Yes.
And so if you can get with a person, a critique group, somebody who can give you honest feedback, that is really, really important, and not just, oh, this is great. It's like, okay, I like this, and I like this, but I see that this and this could be better. So go ahead. And so for any and all stages of writing, I think the top error, it remains showing, not telling.
Okay.
And so that's something that I have really been working on with my authors. And so a couple tips that I can tell you about for showing, not telling, is thinking about the scene as it's happening, as if you are in the scene and experiencing it along with the the character. And so that way you're actually in the action. And one way you can recognize an easy way to recognize when you fall out of the action is if you see the words was or had been. So if you're saying he was running, you're then narrating. You're no longer you're running. We ran together. So that you're in the action. Right. So that I think in all writers, whatever stages, and the more you continue writing, then it gets easier and easier. And then the more you read, you can see, oh, I liked how they handled that there. And so, that's one big thing. And I still think like commas. Commas are still
the punctuation.
Grammar review.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
It really is.
Yeah,
you'd be surprised. So I think that proofreading your work before sending it it's hard because you get excited, and I know I've been guilty of it.
Yeah.
So I will say I've made errors and sent emails and posted my website with errors, and it's okay. and the world keeps revolving.
Yeah.
But when first starting out and making a contact, you want to have it to be as error-free as possible. Right. And so having an editing friend, like even for my own work, I always have somebody read it before I send it out, or I try to. And anytime I don't, I usually have an error. So
yeah. And you usually don't catch it until you're reading it, after it's posted. I read it 5 times. How did I miss that? So a lot of times with kids, you're like, oh, I'm almost done. I'm just going to send this last email. Yeah.
So, so slowing down is one other thing.
Okay.
Is trying to prioritize depending on where you are in your writing. But so as you get more in, when you have deadlines that you're working around. And I guess one other thing I would recommend if thinking about traditional publishing versus self-publishing, I just really, really don't recommend self-publishing unless you are in the industry, unless you know how to market, because when I working at Zondervan, in addition to the edits that I did with my authors, which could be anywhere from 3 to 7 rounds of editing, even after that, there was 6 other eyes that the manuscript went through. So all those different editors that did proofreads, a line edit. So just to know that kind of editing that goes into the book through the traditional publishing, and also getting the book out there, it's a really big process, and it can completely be done. But I think that a lot of people self-publishing has also inundated the market, which makes it harder for all authors. But I think that everybody in the writing industry wants to help people network, and networking is super big deal.
Yeah, it's important.
And stepping out of your comfort zone. Oh yeah. I learned that long ago. I heard that at a conference. And it's like stepping out of your out of your comfort zone. And saying, hey, I'm a writer, and so wherever you go, networking and making contacts I think that continues forever.
Right, it does. I mean, that's a huge part, because if no one knows who you are, you can be the best writer in the world. You could actually be the next, best-selling author. But if no one knows who you are, then this is basically just worthless. But so, how do you feel about self-editing tools, whether you are self-publishing or you are conventionally published?
I think
traditionally
self-editing tools are great, and I also that's a great question. Actually, I see the editing process as a 4-stage process, and I heard this from another editor at a conference once. Kendra Levine from Penguin, and I said, wow, you just summed that up so great. And but it's like, you think of an inverted triangle where your first, you'll have stages, and your first pass is your macro edit, your overall, and you're looking for big plot problems and things that don't make sense. And then you're going to go through a line edit where you look for ways to add details to the setting or details about the characters. And then still another edit where you go in and you really incorporate more details of setting and character and implement those in and look for more ways to show, not tell, because you're looking at the nitty gritty. And then finally, you're down to think of the tip of the triangle, and it's your nitty gritty proofreading and grammar, punctuation. And so that's kind of the stages that I think about. And having people help out at that with finding an editor, how it was very helpful at those times. I know it's also, you can't always do that. So as far as self-editing tools, I know that I think that the conferences are a great way to continue to learn the fourth and time kind of thing. And so it's a continuous learning process. And really, I look back and you just forget about all the things that you learn as you go. And that's one of the reasons I'm really passionate about helping other writers, because I've been helped along the way. And I think in this industry, it's something that we have to do. We have to help others.
Yes. Because, go ahead.
I want to tell you one other thing before I forget this, but as far as writing goes, I think one of the things that's different nowadays is the reality that everybody has to have internet presence, and especially in publishing, I think that now every business has to have an internet presence, but especially in publishing. And it's good for writers in that there's more opportunities because companies are actually hiring internet editors and teams, so you can combine love of writing with other stuff like medical, but then also the reality of that you have to maintain your own social media, and that's a part of it now. Yes. Because whenever you submit, no matter where, they're going to. When I would present books to the pub board, they're Googling the authors at the same time.
Oh, okay.
And it's not a matter of how many followers all the time, but just being consistent, right? And it doesn't have to be every platform. It has to be something that's enjoyable for you. I recommend LinkedIn because to everybody just for starting, because that's basically just your online resume, and I've gotten a lot of contacts through that. And then from there, you can decide what you want to do. Like if you want to have a Facebook profile or a fan page for your books, or you think about different ways to use the social media to create marketing campaigns.
Yeah, and I think that's wonderful, and that's good information to all the would-be writers that are out there. If you're trying to break into the business, then you most definitely should be taking notes, because this is good information. This is great information. And also, I just want to touch on the querying part and the submission part of your work. So can you tell us a little bit about the process of that?
Okay. All right. Well, are you more interested specifically in children's publishing? Yes.
Well, just in overall, just in general.
Okay. Well, one of the things that you can do, writers, is every year they have different writers market resource guides that are updated annually, and they're available in your library. And if you go there, yes, even in person, not on the internet, and you physically pick up the book, it will show you it, and you can look it up on the internet too. But by doing it in the library, you're able to research books that are like your book, and you see who's publishing that. And then you go get the writer's guide, you look up that publisher, and you see what is their submission guidelines. And so you might then say, I noticed this book that you published, and I thought you would be interested in this stuff. And also, when you look in the market guides, they'll give their wish list. So I used to start out my query letter saying, I read in the Children's Writer Bulletin that you were interested in scary stories, and I thought you might be interested in this. And so by looking at that and looking at your homework, seeing what the publisher's fitting, because that's really important. Because if the publisher, say, only does nonfiction and you submit a fantasy novel, going to know you didn't do your homework. And you probably won't get a reply.
Right.
And here's something I learned a long time ago that I still swear by, but every time, if you get a personal rejection letter from an editor rather than a form letter, that's a really big deal. And so if you get a personal rejection letter, you should write a thank you note saying, thank you for personally rejecting me.
Right.
And so then from there you established a contact. And so whenever you submit, and even when it was rejected, which this is something that happened with me, I would submit my stories, and they might not be used, but then I was called then and asked to do assignments. And that's one way I started to write for Focus on Your Family for a while. And so so those writer's market guides are what I would go to. And then you can they usually have sample query letters. Then another trick is for a book that's similar to your own. Sometimes if you can look at the acknowledgments, the editor is listed. And so that can help you get a name, an actual name. And that's a good thing to do when you're submitting. And then other than that, especially when starting out, following the writer's guidelines. But so there's if you do your homework and you do it professionally, even if a publisher says unagented, they will look at your work. And so for children's writing, or whatever genre you're in, each one has a professional organization, and so you should join that. And for children's writing, it's the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. And I've been to conferences where agents and editors have said to me, or editors have said that if you write on the outside of the envelope, member SCBWI, they'll look at your book even if it's not agented, because it shows them that you're doing your homework, you're serious about it. Right. And then from there, once you have established a contact here, a contact there, you can continue submitting, and that's the way to just build it up as you go.
And that's very important. That is, it shows dedication, a level of dedication. If you're doing all the homework, all the hard stuff before you even submit it to them, so that can only bode well for you.
Sorry, did I lose you there?
No, I'm still here.
Okay, good. Just drop my phone. Okay, we're good. Okay. Are there any other questions along that line? I feel like I have more information, but I don't want to.
No. Share away. That's why we're doing this chat, because I want you to tell us what you know. So, so you have the floor.
Okay. When you're first starting out, also, one of the things I used to do with my students is a research trip to the bookstores and libraries, because in order to learn the market, it's like, how do you learn the market? And so with the internet, it's hard, because you can go and Google stuff, but actually seeing what's out there is a good way to get just to know where to submit. And so we used to go in, I have the students who, for example, I say, hey, whatever articles you have to write for school, they could potentially, or assignments for school could potentially turn into an article. And then we would go in and look for magazines where it might be placed to work that it could fit. So those are just all different ways. And just reading books on the craft of writing, and you'll continue to get more exposure. And also, don't be afraid to go follow your favorite authors and publishers on all their social media. Every publisher has like a Facebook page, a Twitter page, an Instagram page. So I go out there and I follow all the publishers.
That's a good idea.
And you'll be surprised. And I heard this at a conference once, and this was several years back, in fact, where it said you have to step out of your comfort zone. And I think that night I was at a conference and I was all inspired. So I must have Facebook friended 30 huge authors. Oh my God, I'm a huge fan. Lois Lowry, can you follow me? And she did. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is
it was worth it because you got to follow back. So.
Oh my gosh, it was so great. So following back.
Yeah.
So that was fun. That was really fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's about it there. Yeah.
Well, so
anything else?
Well, but that covered a lot. So that's a lot of information there, and
I'm so glad.
It is very useful information. And so now I want to know, as I'm sure a lot of the other listeners want to know, how do you obtain an agent?
Oh, yes. Okay. Conferences is the best one.
Okay, that's important.
Yeah, conferences. And the other way, the conference is the best way to go, because then you're going to, the people there are they're at that conference looking for new people to hire. And then the other way is there's still annual guides similar to the writer's market. And, here's the thing, when submitting to an agent versus a publisher, it's really important. You can multiply submit a story to different publishers as long as you say, I've been sharing this with other publishers, but you don't want to do that with agents.
Okay.
You only want to submit to one agent at a time. And agents today, I am learning that they really have different roles now. And asking a lot of questions is really important, because some agents don't help you edit. They don't help you market. They're really just hands off. And so it's before signing on with an agent, I really, it's important to ask a lot of questions. I think that getting a good relationship, it's hard to do, but when you do, you want it to be long term. But I also know that it's okay for if you part ways. But asking like what their process is. Do they manage more than one project at a time? Or do they focus on one at a time? When would they be able to start working on your own book? When you think you might be submitting mine? Are you going to help me with my proposal? So
they're basically, their job is to be the liaison. Excuse me, the liaison between the author and the publisher. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And so what the editors feel at the publishers that I've worked with, that the agents help. They're weaning down the process. So they have a relationship with different editors, and they know who's looking for what. And so when an editor gets a submission from an agent, they know it's going to be something good. Something where it's far along and it's tight. And so the only thing about it's just so equally hard to get published with a publisher as it is to get an agent. So I would encourage all writers, even as you're submitting to agents, to keep on submitting to publishers yourself.
I think that's important too, because I get the publishing magazines, and sometimes they have a list of agents that are accepting new clients, and then too they have a list of publishers that are accepting an agent manuscripts.
Yes.
So, and I think that's a great thing for self-publishers, or for someone who has, maybe they don't want to self-publish, but they want to submit to a traditional publisher. They want to get their work in without having an agent, because, as you said before, you want to do your homework when it comes to pretty much everything that's dealing with this market of writing, but most certainly when it comes to trying to find someone who is going to put your work in front of a publisher, you want to make sure that those agents are on the up and up, because so many people, have been taken for a ride, because they didn't do their homework, and they just went out there willy-nilly, found an agent that was on the internet or whatever, without researching their history, their background, and who they are affiliated with, how many clients have they had that were, successful. So, just like you said, it's very important to do your homework when it comes to all of these things, especially if this is what you're choosing as your career. You want to, because it's nothing to to take lightly or not be serious about. You really have to have a passion for it to pursue it. You know, a lot of people say
you have to persevere.
You do.
You must persevere.
Yeah.
It's the number
You
one
do.
thing.
You
It's
do.
rough.
It is. It's really rough. You know, and going back to what you said about getting rejection letters, you know, from publishers, because I've gotten some a time or two, but the way my thinking is the same as yours, because I'm like, okay, they wrote me back. They took the time to write me back. It didn't go to the slush pile, you know, and I never heard back from them. They actually wrote me back.
Right.
So I'm like, I see the positive in that.
Yes, and that's exactly right.
Yes.
And then also just being ready to resubmit it. So
Yes.
I would get those rejections, and I was just like, okay, turn around and send it
Yes,
out again.
yes. You get impassioned even more. It's like, okay, that's good. That means I'm on the right trail. So I'm gonna keep chasing this, you know. But
Yes, but you also must have a network of people, because there's the opposites where you're like, why are we doing this?
Right.
Why am I doing this?
Right.
So it's a really hard profession.
it is.
Especially the writing side.
Yes.
I think, like, as far as you know, for people who are ever thinking about editing, you know, I've been telling, if you want to write, plan on getting a day job.
Yeah.
And if you want to make money, you know, you can make a lot of money in editing, but it's a really high pace, really fast job and deadline oriented. But it's fun if you love it, and I loved it. I still do. But
Wow.
it was just when I had 4 children at the time, and
that's
so
a challenge. Yeah.
70 hours, you know,
Yeah.
it just was not working out.
No.
But it was great fun, and so getting a critique group, and actually that's another thing that can happen through conferences. You can meet people who are local and start getting some, even just through emails, you can have relationships and friendships with people who are also writers and know what it's like.
Right. Because I think that experience needs to be shared. And I think that the truth of how hard it is to really make it in this business is something that every writer, every new author should be aware of, because, you know, they see the all of the bestsellers and things like that, and then they think that, you know, that these things happen overnight, but it's a journey. You know, it's a process to everything. So, you know, probably a lot of the things that we've experienced as writers, as authors, they experience the same thing. And, you know, if you would just look at, you know, some of their bios, they will tell you, you know, that how many rejection letters they received before they were actually successful. So, you know, you have to, you have to sort of put your gloves on and, you know, get ready to battle your way through, because sometimes, you know, it's a hard fight. It's a long fight. But if you stay in there, you know, you can come out on the better end of that journey. But you have to, like you said, persevere. Right, and not give up.
You made me think of something really that I want to tell, and I tell my authors. So it's so important to not write to the market. Don't try to write to that market. Focus on your story and your story alone. And I think that's one of the ways to succeed today. That's the story that's going to resonate with readers.
Right.
And it's not even about getting on the bestseller list so much.
No.
It's about creating contacts in the library world, in the bookstore world, and so just that is such an important thing, where I see people trying to write to the market.
Right.
And you can tell.
You can. Because I read a ton of books, and I'm like, you know, a lot of the books that resonate in me, I know that these books were, you know, they were just bone deep. You know, that the person wrote this book, they poured their spirit, their soul, everything they had into it. Yeah, everything into it, because you feel it, you know. And then I read some books, I'm like, this is just something that is, you know, it's like just going to the market, and you know how they have the magazines and things right there. You know, I'm like, this is just, it's so typical. You know, I'm like, I've read this before. You know, I don't find anything fascinating about this. It's just a story, you know, because it meets the demands of the market, and that's not, you know, and I always say, be true to yourself. You write from your heart, you write what you feel, and those are the stories that will resonate. Those are the stories that will, that people will be talking about, that they will share, with other people. Tell everybody about it because, it left a great impression on them. So, and I agree with you totally. And I'm so glad that you said that.
That's something that you said that made me think of that. Mm-hmm. And, I know that I don't know if you have a lot more questions, but I have something funny.
Go ahead.
To sign off on. But when I first started in children's publishing, I have these great quotes that I've saved from people, in the writing world. And so one of them when this person is writing, it was like, when are you going to get a real job?
Oh.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, I know. And then people don't realize how hard it is to write children's books. And picture books are actually probably one of the hardest genres to write for because you have to tell a whole story in like 250 words.
Wow.
And one of the greatest quotes is, so when you get better, will you write for adults? And I was like, yeah. So you just kind of laugh.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
Move on.
Exactly. That just...
It's all right.
That just goes to show you that's why you do what you do, and that's why they do what they do.
That's exactly right. People not in the publishing industry don't understand.
They don't have a clue. They don't have a clue. Well, Kim, I have enjoyed so much talking with you today. You have shared so much information.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. So much useful information. And I hope everybody was taking notes as you were giving out all of these, the things that are most common pitfalls for writers and the things that will help progress your career along. So this was a very worthwhile show, and I'm so glad that you were a part of it. So now I want you to tell the listeners where they can find your work, where they can locate you, and read more about you and what you do.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
I do have a website. It's CHILDRESS, Inc., INK.com. And it started out as a book review website where I would review books that I couldn't get into Girls Life.
Okay.
And it's kind of evolved from there for an author and writer's website.
Okay.
And just as far as reviews go, I never write a bad review because there's too many good books out there.
Okay.
So... And I also, I have the latest project I helped work on is a new picture book, and it's called The Legend of the Fairy Stones.
Okay.
And I worked as the product developer on this with the author, Kelly White, and her agent, DJ Snell from Legacy. And it's come out in April from Morgan James Kids. Okay. So The Legend of the Fairy Stones, and... so then you can also just see my work online and here and there, and eventually have my own projects out there in submission land. So.
All right. Well, we'll be looking for that. And again, thank you so much for joining in with us today. We got like 2 minutes, so I got to hurry this along so before it ends. But but I thank you so very much for joining us today. And I hope everybody jotted down the information that you gave them. And hopefully we can reconnect at a later time because I would love to talk to you.
I would love that.
Okay.
Thank you so much for having me, and I enjoy helping in any way I can.
Thank you, Kim. All right. Have a great day.
Have a great day and happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. Happy Mother's Day. Yes. Bye now. All right, everyone. So that was the show. That was Kim Childress that was with us today, speaking with us. So before we run out of time here, I want to give you some information how you can stay in contact with me, of course, through Spreaker, and that's https://www.spreaker.com/user author Vivian E. Moore. You can also follow me, like me, on all social media. I hope you're planning on going to church tomorrow. Take some family members, take some loved ones, take some children, and by all means, tell someone that you love them. And before I forget, happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers. And then tell someone that you love them because you may not get another chance to do so. So I love you. I hope you love me back. Until the next time you hear my voice, God bless you and goodbye.
Loved what you've heard on this week's episode? Well, the answer is simple. It would mean the world to us if you could head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review and feedback. Spreading the word really is the best way to grow our podcast and achieve even greater things. Thank you.